Well, I like to say one thing. I would understand one thing, that God hasn't given up on the Jewish people. They still are his people. God promised the land to Abraham forever, to his descendants, and that, I would say yes. I mean, God has not given up on the Jewish people. He still keeps his promise. He has blessed people and nations according to the way they have treated the Jewish people. And today, we see that God brought back out of the Holocaust, he brought back the Jewish nation after almost 2,000 years. It was, God's promise. And then, Yeshua talked about in Matthew chapter 24 and verse 32, he said, learn a parable of the fig tree, that when the branch is yet tender and putteth forth leaves, you know that summer is nigh. So likewise, when you see all these things, know ye that it is near at the doors. And I think, one thing that the believers should wake up and realize, that there is no such thing as replacement theology, that God didn't replace Israel with the Kehillah, with the believers. He said, in Jeremiah, he said thus saith the Lord, which giveth the sun as for a light by day, and the ordinance of the moon, and the stars for a light by night, which divide the sea, when the ways thereof the Lord is his name. And he said, if these ordinances cease to depart from him, so then would his covenant with the children of Israel. So, you know what? I mean, so the Kehillah should wake up and realize that it's always God's time for Israel. That he set aside Israel for a time in order the Gentiles would be believers. That he promised in Isaiah that Messiah would be a light to the Gentiles. He said Jerusalem would be trodden down of the Gentiles until that time would cease. And now we see that Jerusalem is now back in the hands of the Jewish people with the 6-day war. And a lot of believed people, Jewish people, have been coming to faith since that time, the last 51 years. That since Jerusalem came back into Jewish hands, and that one thing the Kehillah should wake up and realize, that the Jewish people can be saved. They can be brought back in, and he promises a time when all of Israel will believe. So I think it behooves us, one thing, God has not given up on the Jewish people. One thing that all believers should realize, they do not replace Israel, that Israel is a part of God's covenant. And they should pray that Israel will come in and be faithful to the Lord.